And we are live. Happy Wednesday, everybody. And today's topic is
our best tips for writing a cover letter and resume. We've all written a bunch of them, I feel like.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a skill to be mastered. It's not as easy as I feel like it should be, but
yeah, it's kind of tough. Stressful. It's a stressful thing to do. Cover letters.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like one piece of paper, two pieces of paper that has to communicate like who you are and why they should hire you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, with like your resume, it's like it's hard because you either have too much experience or you don't have enough.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have enough to fill the page, but you have too much, then you have to cut stuff out.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's like a balance game, you know?
Yeah, it's tough. And it's tough to like rework some of your experience. Like when I was first applying for my first internship, I didn't have any other marketing experience other than school because it was my first internship.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I've waited tables and like helped them with their social media. So like that counts.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, I interact with people.
I talk to people. That's marketing.
Yeah, like the thing with your resume is it's also like a breathing, living document.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you do your resume and it's done. You know, like your resume is always being fixed.
Yeah, and if you do have a lot of work experience, you have to change up what you put on your resume for each job you apply to make sure you're putting the most relevant experience for that particular job.
And that's like an important thing for cover letters too. It's like, because we always like learned in class and like stuff, like when you're writing a cover letter, like you want to explain more like why you want to work for them.
Mm-hmm.
Mention why you have experience, but you really want to like make them feel like you want to belong there.
Mm-hmm.
The resume is kind of a place more where you demonstrate your actual skill.
Mm-hmm.
Cover letters, you know, so you need to be like very like appreciative and friendly and complimentary when you're writing a cover letter, and like explain exactly why, like this value at your company aligns with what I've done, this like volunteer thing or through this work experience, because that way it like, you know, makes it seem like you guys are like best friends, like your values align perfectly.
Yeah, you draw that immediate connection rather than just hoping that they realize that what they're looking for you have.
Yeah, like you want to like prove to them up front that you share their values. So like if their values are like sustainability, you know, you can be like, hey, I value sustainability and like, you know, protecting the earth, and I've done this, I volunteered this, I was in charge of this club. It's like, you know, it's like killing two birds with one stone. You're like showing that you like their company, but you're also showing like you have relevant experience too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say Mocha was really vibing with what you were saying. I gotta say, she was like, "Oh yeah, I second that."
Okay, agree with all of it.
Kind of mumbling over here. Yeah, I think that's really important, and I like what you were saying about the picking and choosing work experience, because like, I briefly did a stint doing house cleaning when I was in like middle school or early high school. That's probably not gonna be super relevant if I'm applying to be a writing intern, right?
Yeah, maybe not.
And I have definitely seen resumes where it's like 3 or 4 pages long because they're listing every single work experience they have ever had in their entire lives. And don't be afraid to whittle it down for each job application to, you know, 2, maybe 3 experiences that you think are really relevant and that will resonate with the place you're applying to work.
Yeah. We've always been told to like literally make your resume one page, like not front or back, like a singular front page.
That's what I've always been told too.
Because it's just like, first of all, it proves that you can summarize yourself on a single page, which is impressive enough. And it's like you understand what's relevant. You have like 4 pages. It's just like you're throwing everything at the wall and just seeing what sticks.
And that's a lot to read. I mean, like almost every hiring manager, I'm sure, gets like hundreds, if not thousands of applications. If you're like if your resume is 5 pages long, they're not going to remember it as much when they've gone through 50 already that day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it kind of makes me think, we make this joke, I think it's in the video that's on our homepage now, about how once you've read over a dozen resumes, your eyes start glazing over, and we're kind of talking about hiring writers. But it really can be true when you're hiring, especially for a job that's in really high demand. You are going to get so many resumes where, you know, if you see a resume that's like 4 or 5 pages long versus one that's like 1 page and is really aesthetically well designed and is really clearly organized, that makes a very big difference in that first impression. Because I think, people talk a lot about first impressions when it comes to the interview, and those are important too. You want to be professional and friendly and all of that in the interview, but your real first impression is when you are submitting that resume.
Because you need to get the interview. It's
Yeah.
like once you get the interview, you're a bit more in, so you can prove yourself even more. But like that, you need to get the resume down so you can get the interview.
Yeah, if you don't have that down, you'll never get the interview, and then it won't ever move forward.
They won't even talk to you in person. Like they'll see you on a piece of paper,
Mhm.
just exist on that piece of paper, and that's it. But it's like whenever you go it's like when you go to the library or when you're like searching through movies on Netflix, and when you see a 5-page resume, you might not even read it. It's like when you're going through Netflix, you see a movie you like, and then the runtime is like 3 hours long, and you're like, I'm not watching that right now.
Yeah.
It's like when you go to the library and it's like someone recommends a book and you pick it up and it's like 800 pages, and you're like, no, I want like a 200, 300-page book right now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like just the sheer length of it might just instantly turn someone off from it. They might not even look at it. They just throw it away.
Yeah, or look at the first page, maybe 2, and then be like,
Yeah, be like,
this is not relevant experience, and then just move on before they get to the rest of the pages.
Yeah, so I would definitely say, yeah, and make it aesthetically pleasing. I guess that doesn't necessarily mean like make it look like a piece of art, but like make it look super organized and intentional, like a very organized, clear document. Know what to bold, know what to italics, know how to space the page out.
Yeah.
Don't make it look crammed, but make it look like you got all your details, and it's
Yeah, exactly.
And have people review it.
Don't think, oh, I can just go down to 11 or 10 point font. No one will notice. I'll squeeze it all in there.
Yeah.
I think kind of on that same note of really making that good first impression, if you're going to have a mission statement or objective or profile section, make sure that the way you describe your goals lines up with the position you're applying for.
Mhm.
If you are applying to be a real estate agent, maybe don't talk about how much you love working in childcare. That's probably not going to do you any favors. And those are just examples off the top of my head. But something that I think is definitely a pet peeve is when someone will apply for a job and then in the resume that they submit, talk about how much they want a completely different type of job and career path. And it's just kind of like, did you actually want this job, or were you just applying to every one-click job that you could possibly find?
Exactly. It's like the common application that when you apply to college,
Mhm.
we'll send the same application to all these different places, but it doesn't work like that with jobs. It's stressful, especially whenever you're applying for a job and you see they want a cover letter and you're just thinking to yourself, okay, now I have to write another cover letter. But what you should do, what I would recommend, is have a cover letter template,
Mhm.
and then you replace all the information that you need to. So that way you don't have to type up a new document every time.
Mm-hmm.
Like have a template where it's, it has your address somewhere you can put their address in, introduction sentence of you introducing yourself, and then things you can fill in the blanks with.
Yeah. And there's going to be some things that are consistent. Like if you're really wanting to find a job as a writer, for example, the backstory of how you fell in love with writing and what got you interested in pursuing that as a career is probably going to be consistent to some degree for every writing job you apply for.
Yeah.
But you might use the last sentence or two of that paragraph for if you're applying for a ghostwriting job or a blog writing job or an editorial job or something like that. But you can still say, I've loved reading and writing ever since I was in kindergarten and first figured out, what the letters meant, or some sentence like that that's gonna be consistent and that's gonna flow well with all the career objectives you're considering pursuing.
Mhm.
Yeah. I would say definitely having specific intentions in mind when you're writing it.
Mhm.
Don't just be like, and especially with the wording, the phrasing is very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
So like, let's say like, yeah, you had experience working at a daycare. Don't just say like, I worked with kids and helped take care of them. Be like, I organized
Mhm.
events, blah, blah, blah. I facilitated, blah, blah, blah. Like use words that like clearly express exactly what was happening.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's really easy to underestimate your own work experience and how much that qualifies you. But there are definitely lessons that you will have learned from every single work experience, but you've got to word it that way. Even though there are a lot of things I'm really good at, but if you threw me into working at a fast food drive-through, I'd have no idea what I was doing. I would have absolutely no clue. And I think it is helpful when you're working on your resume to kind of look at it from that idea of, if I were explaining this job to someone who has never worked any job, anything like this before, what would I say their skill set needs to be to kind of get out of that? Like, oh, well, yeah, you need to be able to keep multiple orders straight at once. So you need to be managing multiple customer accounts, or, making sure that totals are correct, or providing a positive atmosphere for customers. Those are all really important skills for customer service and collaboration that are going to be good in any position. But it sounds way more appealing when you word it that way than just saying, yep, I fried fries. Like,
yeah, exactly. It's like, what? It's like, who cares that you fried fries? But like,
Mocha cares.
What did you actually learn from frying fries?
Exactly.
A marketing job and make French fries. But there could be skills that you learned from that whole experience that would apply. Like, I worked with this. Obviously, I don't need fruit knowledge to work at Content Cucumber. I mean, I guess Content Cucumber and stuff, but that's not why I got the job. But there's things I learned working produce, like customer interaction and like managing the stock and the inventory and stuff that's much more relevant. So I'm just like figuring out a way to like kind of spin what you did.
Yeah.
To really make it feel relevant.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of the same. Like, I did a lot of work in childcare before I worked here, and babysitting, nannying, all kinds of stuff. And if you have a lot of relevant experience, definitely narrow it down to the 2 or 3 most relevant. But if you're like, hey, I'm fresh out of college, I've got like 1 internship and then my, high school minimum wage job, don't be afraid to put that minimum wage job, because it does show that you've got a work history. But do work on that wording and say, like with the childcare example, I was able to manage multiple parents' expectations for their childcare. I kept track of any medications or food allergies, made sure policies were followed, cleaned the premises, make sure that you are using that kind of language that shows you weren't just showing up, chilling in the back room and then getting a paycheck. You were really involved in what was going on and actively learning skills while you were there.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Yeah, it's all very important.
Yeah, that's a good tip.
Make sure what you put on the resume you can actually talk about, because we get the interview and ask you about the resume
and you're like, what?
You just made something up, or it's like just something you were like, that sounds cool. Because then you're going to be fumbling. You're going to look like silly. You're going to look like you were lying.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you definitely make the work you did seem valuable and like you learned a skill, but also don't make it up.
Yeah.
Because I've been asked about my resume almost every interview I've ever done. They will be tell me about this experience.
Yeah, that's a really common question. Or say, how do you think this specific job prepared you for the position you're applying for now? Or what is, the one top skill that you learned from this experience? So kind of be ready to answer those kinds of questions. If you worked a job for like 3 days and didn't learn anything, maybe don't put it on your resume.
Yeah, maybe don't put that on your resume.
Because you will be asked.
Yeah, they will.
It's awkward for everyone.
And usually they ask you, a lot of interviews, they ask you to go through your resume. That's like the first thing you do. They're like, walk me through your resume.
Yeah.
And if you just like skip over something on your resume, they're going to wonder why you didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
They might like come back to like, what is this experience that you have on your resume, but you just didn't say anything about?
Yep. Whereas
like make sure that you're proud of everything that you have.
Yeah. And if you're not proud of it and it just wasn't a great experience, just don't include it on your resume. You've only got space for a couple of experiences. So make sure they're the ones that are going to make you shine.
Like what you said, Sarah, like if you don't have a lot of, like if you're young or you just don't have a lot of experience, it's fair to put certain things on your resume that you might omit if you had a lot more experience. But like if you have a lot of experience, like don't put super irrelevant stuff.
Yeah.
I did this when I was like 14, like maybe that's not relevant anymore. But if you're like, younger, have less experience, that might make sense on a resume. But
I think a good way to fill that up too is with schoolwork.
yeah,
Go through your school projects, your group projects, anything you had to present that you have like a physical form of or not, whether you have like a PowerPoint or you just presented, like those are the things then to add to kind of bulk up your resume if you really have no job experience.
Or any extracurriculars. If you had any leadership experience or volunteer
yeah,
you were a part of, definitely include that. And I think kind of to your point, Connor, if you don't have a lot of experience, bringing up ways that connect can be really, really impressive. And the cover letter is the perfect place to do that. So again, back to my example, which is childcare, which is what I worked in. If I just throw that on a resume and I'm like, yep, watched kids, organized snacks, cleaned rooms,
yeah,
that probably doesn't seem super relevant to a marketing position. But if I say in my cover letter, I really learned through childcare the power of one single product or service to completely change someone's day or week. And when I was able to take childcare off of the parents' plate for a few hours, how much happier that made them and how much they were able to get done. And I really believe in your product, and I think that it can also change lives, and I want to be able to share that too. And that's just off the top of my head, right? But finding a way in the cover letter to connect that seemingly kind of random experience to what you're applying to do in the future.
Yeah.
I think it's important too for cover letters, don't make them too like professional in the sense of where they're like super dry.
Yeah,
like, you want to show the passion you have. Yeah, your personality and that you're passionate about this job. Because like if you're not, like why would they want to hire you?
Yeah, you want to be
like,
formal, but you don't want to be like stiff or like seem like a person that like would be really just uncomfortable to talk to.
Yeah.
So like show a little bit of your personality. For our resumes, they recommend, like at my school, they recommend that we at the very bottom put like our hobbies and interests. And it doesn't take up too much space. It's like the last 2 lines on the page. But like you just say like piano. Like you just leave it out of word. Piano, soccer, movies, music.
Yeah, but it helps to like fill out who you are as a person.
Yeah, like it shows that you have a little bit of personality. Sometimes they ask about it. I've been asked in a lot of interviews about the hobbies, because like if you put like an instrument, let's say guitar, that kind of shows that like you have you're self-motivated, like you taught yourself an instrument. They might ask you about it. And it shows that like you're well-rounded, because that's something that's really important when you're like working, is that you have a lot of skills, because then you can do different things. So like showing that you have hobbies, I think, or interest is important too. Like you're still a person when you're doing an interview. Like you're not like some sort of machine.
Yeah, you're not just like a number.
Yeah, like you want to show that you're not a number. Like you're literally a person applying to a job, and you do have hobbies and interests. So don't like act like those don't exist.
Yeah, and it's okay to have those outside of work. It doesn't mean that like you won't work hard if you have hobbies outside of work. It just means you're actually probably going to be a better employee because you have a full round, like well-rounded life. You're not just working and that's it, and then you're going to get work out.
So I think a lot of people are afraid of that. Like they're afraid that like if I put this, they're going to think like I'm not going to put my 100% into work, or like I'm not going to, put like 80, 90 hours into a week. First of all,
you shouldn't do that anyways.
You shouldn't work for a place that doesn't want you to have hobbies. That's obvious. That should be without saying.
Well, and the data is in overwork. Unless you are a very rare kind of person, overwork is not helpful. And so I would even suggest that if it's the kind of place that's going to say, oh, they play an instrument, they're going to want time to do that. Clearly, this is never going to work out. That might not be a great fit for you anyway, if you're someone that really values the time to pour into your hobbies. And I saw this, I think it was in a Morning Brew email. I could be wrong, but someone asked a recruiter about it, and the recruiter said something along the lines of, keep in mind during the interview process, yes, the company is evaluating you, but you are also evaluating the company. And I know when I'm doing interviews, I'm always really impressed when an applicant comes in and has questions for me about our work culture and our environment. And they'll say, hey, what does a day in the life look like? Or what is your favorite and least favorite thing about your company's culture? And they'll come in with these really researched questions, and they'll refer to one of our blog posts, or they'll refer to our website. And that's really impressive. And it's also a good chance for you to get to evaluate, okay, they're evaluating if they want me to work here. I'm evaluating if I want to work there. And
Yeah.
both of those evaluations are a really important part of the process.
Yeah, I mean, it's just as much for them as it is for you.
Mhm.
We all understand that you want a job. Like, and it's, sometimes you just want to take what you can get. But there's also times when it might be apparent that like it's just not going to work.
And it's better to just let it go than work there for a couple months, be miserable, and
Yeah, then
leave
leave.
or stay. But like, it's like, you didn't have to do that. If you don't like the
Yeah.
company, unless you're like in a really strapped position and you just need to get a job,
Yeah.
don't take the job.
Yeah, if you have the ability to be picky.
Mhm.
Don't, like, if you're in the situation where you feel comfortable looking like you had the means to do so, don't just settle for a job, I guess. Like, find something that means something.
And prioritize your needs. So like for some people, maybe having a really high paycheck is more important to them than having flexible hours for whatever reason. And so they'll know that that's their non-negotiable. Whereas other people might go in and say, I wouldn't mind earning a little bit less if it means that I can leave work early on some days, or if I can work from home a few days of the week, or have that additional flexibility. We actually have a really great blog post. I don't know if it came out yet or if it's just coming out, Quinn, but the one about things other than your salary to negotiate.
That's going to come out tomorrow.
Perfect. I think that was a really cool blog post because there are a lot of different priorities that you might have going into a job. And so know what those are and know what your non-negotiables are, because that's going to save both you and the people looking at hiring you a lot of time as far as figuring out if this is going to be a good fit or not.
Yeah. And then you know exactly what questions to ask at the end of the interview. Like, these are the things that are important to me, and you'll know what answers you need. Rather than just being like, well, is it a good company to work for?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It would be very unwise to ask, hey, do you make all of your employees miserable? That's not a question you want to ask, but you can ask questions like, what are the best parts of your work culture? Or how does your team handle it when someone has a personal emergency and needs a day off work? Or, something along those lines. What do you do when someone isn't hitting their KPIs? You can ask those kinds of questions and get an idea of what kind of work culture they have and whether that's going to be a good fit for what you need. And knowing exactly what you're looking for and getting really specific on that is going to make the interview a lot more helpful for both you and the interviewer. So I think a lot of the core tips, if we had to sum all of this up, would be make sure that your resume is well organized and relatively pleasant to look at and includes really relevant experience, and you explain why you have that experience. Make sure you customize your cover letter, and if at all possible, do write a cover letter. And 3, do your research before you go into the interview. Know something about the company, know something about the role. And finally, 4, know what's important to you and go into the interview with that in mind, that they aren't just deciding whether or not to hire you, you're deciding if you want to be hired by them. And that's just as important.
Yeah, I think that's one extra tip to that is write a cover letter even if they don't ask for one.
Yeah.
The worst case, they just won't read it and they'll just read your resume. But the best case is they read it and it makes you stand out compared to everyone else who didn't submit one because they didn't ask.
Always someone. And if they say like optional, like you can put a resume here if you want.
You must
Put the cover letter there. Like if they say that, send it to them, because it's kind of like, they're kind of gauging.
Yeah, they're willing to see who's going to do it, even if they don't have to do it.
Exactly. They want to really see who's wants that job, because the people that really want that job definitely would write a cover letter to prove themselves. So I think just finding ways to make yourself differentiable, the stack of papers, is super important.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and don't be afraid, unless they have something that says very specifically, do not follow up. Don't call us, we'll call you.
Yeah.
Follow up. Check out their contact information on their website. Connect with someone that might be involved in the hiring on LinkedIn. do what you can to follow up and say, hey, you know, I applied for this position a few days ago. I just wanted to check in, or I applied a week ago, just wanted to check in, and put in that extra little bit of effort. Because usually it's not going to take a lot of time for you, but it shows a lot about you as far as your willingness to follow up, stay on task, and really
Yeah.
see something through.
Yeah, and with all that being said, make an Excel sheet of everywhere you apply to, including like the contact information, their websites, when you submitted the resume, when the deadline was,
Mhm.
Because that's going to help you keep tabs. Because you're going to start getting emails, and you're going to be like, "What is this?"
Especially when you started applying to like honestly like 5+ places, and then you're like, wait,
You're
did
like,
I
"Where?"
follow up with them? Who are
Yeah.
they again?
So make like a little sheet, and then like have like whether they declined you or they wanted to interview. Just helps you keep tabs on everything.
And that way you'll be able to keep an eye out for any sketchy places that are like, you applied here and you definitely did not apply there.
Yeah.
And, like I don't know who you're talking about.
Sorry,
Like, that's not me.
Mhm.
Awesome. I know we're just about out of time. Are there any final tips that we want to leave the audience with?
I don't think so.
Confident in your little resume.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, definitely make sure if you're looking for a summer internship or if you're interested in becoming a writer, we have a bunch of positions open right now. We are hiring for several internships over the summer, including a writing internship, a data scientist internship, a business development internship, and press relations. Yes,
Yes.
press relations. I was like, I listed 3. Which 3? We've got all 4 of those internships that we're hiring for right now for this summer, and we are also hiring for content writers to be on our team. So if any of those positions sound good, definitely reach out to us, and we would love to consider pursuing that further.
Mhm.
Right. Any final words?
I don't think so.
Awesome. We'll have a wonderful Wednesday, and we will talk to you soon, everybody. Bye.
See ya.
Yeah.